is to hear from both Jennifer and Louisa, and then we'll open up the floor to hear from some of you. So we've had a few volunteers so far, and if anyone is feeling inspired to share what they've been working on during the session, then we can see how much time we have and take it from there. But enough from me. I will pass it on over to Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you. I have a few slides just because I wanted to share um, really about climate voice and our theory of change and what we're working on. And first, I just want to say we're big fans of work on climate. And I consider myself part of the movement of people who transitioned to work on climate. So I had a long career in diversity, equity, and inclusion at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And in 2018, I started to get really worried about the climate crisis and thought, if this is the most important issue of our time, how come I'm not working on it? So I left the firm in January of 2020, which seemed genius until March when the whole world fell apart. But luckily, in that time, I had actually met Bill Weil. So since Bill's not here, I'm going to brag a little bit about our founder. Bill is an iconic, sort of famous climate leader. He led to sustainability at Facebook, and before that, he was Google's green energy czar. Bill had a long career in academia. He was a professor at MIT, and he started getting freaked out about climate, and so went to work for these big tech companies to see what he can do. And he really was one of the people who spearheaded a lot of the most exciting sort of operational excellence things that companies did in terms of reducing their carbon footprint. But one of his key insights at these big companies was that the most influential thing they could do to solve the climate crisis would be to advocate for policy, that what we needed was systemic change. And then unfortunately, these companies tended to sort of be worried about the risk of doing that. And then they didn't they were on the sidelines instead of speaking up. So he's founded Climate Voice to change that. So basically, our challenge, the way we like to frame it, is that, as all of you know who have been part of this boot camp, we need to make really big emissions reductions in a short period of time. We have some serious deadlines. 2030 is around the corner, 2050 the same. And that companies, corporate power, can really help us make that transition. But unfortunately, even the pro-climate companies, the good guys, the ones that have green reputations, are silent or on the sidelines. And as a result, the dominant business voice in many countries, but in particular in the US, are fossil fuel companies and their vested interests like trade associations. So I'm going to talk about them a little bit. So this is our problem. So our theory of change is that climate policy is really the transformative lever to address the crisis. We want companies to speak up. The workforce is how we can get them to speak up. So what Climate Voice tries to do is we try to galvanize, educate, activate employees and future employees in terms of students to push their companies from the inside to get them to really advocate. And what we've seen is that employees have successfully moved their employers to take more progressive societal stands on a range of issues, including Black Lives Matter, gender equality, LGBTQ rights, and other issues. When I was at PwC, I saw that firsthand. And our employees said, we're really excited that you have great, same-sex partner benefits for us here at the firm, but we want the firm to take a stand on marriage equality because that's the policy issue of our time. And we, in fact, did that. And I think the business community really made an important strides in terms of pushing that issue forward. So our tagline is that when employees speak, companies act. So we're going to talk about how you guys can make change. So why does climate policy matter? I think we all know emissions are rising. They're going in the wrong direction. That little blip was COVID when we shut down. But we know that each year keeps breaking records for the warmest on record, and that no country and no company is on track to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. We need action. We need to accelerate it. We need more accountability. We need things to move faster. So when we talk about climate policy at Climate Voice, it's all of these things, which you can sort of group into: we need better standards, we need investments, and then we also need justice. And we were making a lot of progress actually in the last 5 years towards a lot of these policy goals. And then, as you know, in the United States, things halted this year and have been backsliding and backlashing ever since. So I'm going to talk about the US in this context, but we know that what the US policy does on these issues really affects the globe writ large. So these are really important and devastating actions at the moment, which we are now all trying to figure out how to challenge and counter. So obviously, in the first 100 days, we knew a bunch of things were going to happen. Trump said he was going to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. He did that the first time around. But he did some things that people weren't really ready for, which is that he froze spending under the Inflation Reduction Act, which had been in the US our most historic climate legislation that we'd done in a long time. He's trying to claw back unobligated funds. So taking back money that had already been appropriated by Congress was pretty intense. He declared this national energy emergency in order to accelerate fossil fuel development. He did a lot around permitting, leases, and loans for onshore and offshore wind, which he has targeted specifically as an energy source he doesn't like. Lifted restrictions on public lands, which again was reversing the Biden administration, changing rules and tax credits for electric vehicles, and fundamentally undermining the mission and authority of the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the agency in the US that regulates greenhouse gas emissions. He is now also, they are attempting to repeal the endangerment finding, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is also very negative. So all of this was bad, but presidential actions and executive orders can only take you so far. But on July 3rd, US lawmakers passed this budget reconciliation bill. And for those of you who are following the ups and downs of this legislation, it included many, many provisions on many topics. But when you just look at the climate implications of this bill, it was really significant. And so basically, again, the Inflation Reduction Act had been this big leap forward in 2022, and they really are trying to repeal it in its most substantive way. So they cut and phased out clean energy tax credits in all of these areas that I have on the slide. They are rescinding this unobligated money for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. They eliminated these environmental justice block grants that had really moved forward to look at communities that were not responsible for pollution, but negatively impacted by it. Methane is a big issue, as many of you probably know, that we've sought to regulate, and they're rolling that back. Expanded all this fossil fuel development, and weakened our federal environmental review processes, which really look at these projects and stop many of them, in fact. So you could say, okay, Jennifer, you've totally depressed me. Why did I come to this webinar? I don't want to be here anymore. But what's great about policy is it happens at many, many levels. So one, the US is obviously giving up our position as a climate leader, but other countries around the globe are going to step into that void and do exciting things and actually push for the policies that they need in their countries that will affect, again, all of us globally. So there's a lot of things happening internationally that are very aggressive and ambitious. And then within the United States, both cities and our states do a lot of exciting work that really can cut emissions drastically and are on the forefront of sort of how policymakers are thinking about addressing this issue. And in our country, New York, California, Washington, Illinois, have really passed some very profound and important policies. So those are all important. So the big question here is, well, how do companies exert influence on policy? Why is the private sector important in this area? And why is that part of our sort of focus? And it's because corporations have enormous influence on policymaking in all countries internationally. And so the direct way that they do that is they lobby. So they have government affairs teams, and they have lobbyists in the state capitals and federal capitals of countries around the world who are actively trying to shape legislation that the company wants to see implemented. Corporations also donate to political campaigns where they endorse particular candidates. They fund political action committees that also advocate for certain candidates and different political positions. Sometimes executives testify, or they serve on government committees. They join legal actions. There's been a lot in the US actually of using litigation as a way to stop policymaking. But then what we're really interested in is there's all these indirect ways that companies affect policymaking that your average employee might not know about. So trade associations are a big part of that, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail in a minute. But there's also advertising and a lot of public communications to really push public sentiment for or against certain policies. And then companies often hire politicians, right? There's this revolving door of people going into politics and then back into the private sector and then back into politics. They also fund a lot of research institutions. So coming up with reports or white papers or information that then will shape future policy. So all these things are very, very powerful. And that's why we really want companies to get into the game for pro-climate policies. And when we look at companies writ large at Climate Voice, we sort of put them into three buckets. So there's the obstructors who are just against anything. So that would be your oil and gas companies. And we know why they hold the positions they do. And a lot of people are fighting them, and that's important, but that's not who we're focused on. There's sideliners, who are these unengaged companies who actually do have their own climate ambitions and goals and things that they're trying to do. And we want them to be more engaged. And then there's the strategic leaders. So companies that see policy as a really important part of what they're doing and how they're achieving their own operational goals. So if you talk to a sustainability leader and you get them at a bar, you give them a drink, they'll tell you that they can't achieve their own goals in terms of what they're putting in their sustainability reports without policy, right? They need the systemic change to actually do things. So who's blocking it? Well, one big group is trade associations. So trade associations are just a group of businesses that come together to influence politics, and they want to increase their sort of lobbying power. And companies pay dues to these organizations, and then the organizations deal with lawmakers. So they lobby, they donate to political campaigns, they shape public opinion in all the ways that we talked about in that last slide in terms of indirect and direct. And Influence Map, which is this global think tank who we collaborate with often, assesses and scores these industry associations globally. And they have lots of them, hundreds of them actually, that they're looking at. And across the globe, they have found that these trade associations in Japan, in Europe, in China, in the US, are consistently blocking progress on climate policy, even if their own individual members want them to do something better. And for us, the US Chamber of Commerce is the biggest cross-sector trade association that is an obstructionist. So we've really focused on them. So in the last 3 years where we were making progress, 2022, 2023, and 2024, the US Chamber lobbied against the Inflation Reduction Act, which was, again, this $369 billion package for clean energy. They lobbied against methane standards, against power plant pollution regulations, and then they sued California and the Security and Exchange Commission to block climate disclosure rules for public companies. So this was the most exciting and important policy that's happened in the last 3 years, and they were against all of it, and yet they continued to say they thought climate was important and it was a material issue for business. So we created a campaign called Escape the Chamber. We were like, it is time for companies to leave the Chamber of Commerce and to lead on climate policy. And so what we did was there was sort of like a big campaign that we launched publicly, but then we've been working with employee advocates at a range of specific companies to work inside their company to try to get change. And so this is a Microsoft petition. And so this is the actual language that we're trying to get Microsoft employees to sign. And then we're sending this petition to their sustainability leader, their CEO, and their government affairs leader who sits on the board of the US Chamber of Commerce. So that's why Microsoft in particular we have targeted, because they've done a lot of things that are positive for policy. They will say that policy is super important to their business, and yet they're paying money to the US Chamber of Commerce and consistently undermining that. So this is a little quiz if we want to just do in the chat, which is companies will often say, well, we can't leave these trade associations because they're so important for business. But there was a tech company that left the US Chamber over the issue of climate. So this is your voting. Who do you think it was? Was it Meta, Google, Apple, or Salesforce? Just pop it in the chat. This is the audience participation portion. Okay, Salesforce, I see. A vote for Meta. Anybody else? Microsoft? Nope. The answer is Apple. And this was in 2009 that Apple left the US Chamber of Commerce. And what they said was the chamber is not advocating for our position. They're at odds with us in terms of what they're trying to do. And at the time, there was a very important bill called the Waxman-Markey Act, which had passed Congress, but not the US Senate. And they were like, we're going to resign our membership immediately. And Apple is doing just fine not being part of this trade association when you look at them since. So, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get employees to advocate from the inside to push these companies to do better. This is probably familiar research to all of you, which is that a lot of employees say they really want and are willing to take action on climate change in their jobs, but they don't know how to start. So we created a climate action guide for employees. I'm going to put it in the chat after I stop sharing my screen. But basically, it's a framework for how employees can get involved, and then testimonials from actual employees who have taken action on these issues at the workplace. So obviously, the first thing is to find out, what does your company actually already do when it comes to policy? So we're working with an employee right now at Grammarly who said, we don't have a sustainability report. So I'm now doing interviews with different executives to find out who's in charge of sustainability, because I know that our company is doing something, but it's not transparent or visible to me. So the big thing is figuring out where they stand already. Then there's this question of influence. And the thing about employees is you have such an important voice. You are so influential because companies really, really care what you think. And there is still a war for talent, even though it goes up and down and up and down in terms of layoffs and the job market and whatnot, that the pressure from inside, we hear from executives all the time, really matters. So basically, we are recommending that what people do is a power map. You have to figure out who are the influencers and how can you sort of connect to the influencers. And sometimes those people, it's about their title in terms of what they're responsible for in the company. And sometimes you just have climate champions who are amazing, who are the CFO, and they really care about this issue personally, and they can help you move it forward in terms of internally. Then no one can do it alone. So we're really focused on creating communities. So when Climate Voice connects with employees, it's usually through a green team, a sustainability group, an employee resource group, an ERG, where people have self-selected that climate is the thing that they care about most. And then they want to figure out how can they make the biggest impact. And often employees focus on the things they can do first. So how can we get more vegan options in the cafeteria? Or how can we do community service events where we educate people about the climate crisis? And that's super important as well. But we're trying to then get people to push to the next level, which is how can we really evaluate where is this company's position on policy? And that's, for instance, like these Microsoft employees that we're working with. They have a real community. They call it the Sustainability Connected Community. It's over 10,000 Microsoft employees have opted into that. I don't know if any of you know Drew Wilkinson. I think he spoke maybe at another Work on Climate event, but we worked with Drew. He's featured in this action guide talking about his experience getting his peers excited about climate and then focused on addressing policy. And then finally, what do you want to advocate for? And that's where we want you all to follow Climate Voice, because we're identifying the issues where we think we can make a difference. So obviously, before July 3rd, we were really focused on this budget bill, that it was a bad budget bill, that a lot of companies had said they liked the clean energy provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act. And we were trying to get powerful companies to go on the record saying that it was a bad bill and lobbying against it. And we were asking employees to push from within, and then we were pushing from without, trying to talk to reporters and talk to executives and try to get them to do things. There are a lot of things coming up. Again, we've lost progress at the federal level. There's a little bit of defense that we're still playing, but there are these make polluter pay laws that are passing in different states across the United States that are exciting. There's a lot of stuff, again, happening in Europe and Asia that's very exciting. These global companies could advocate for those policies wherever they operate. So again, we try to provide the issues in terms of timeliness. Where is a moment where we want companies to step up, speak up, and how can you push from within? So in terms of our action steps, we'd love you to follow us on LinkedIn. That's where we're the most active, because that's where the companies are and all of our constituents. We have a newsletter called Connect the Dots, which really talks about this connection between policy and companies and then climate action. We would love you to sign our Escape the Chamber petition, which I will also put in the chat, and obviously read this Climate Action at Work guide. We'd love feedback on the guide if it's helpful to you. We're trying to meet employees where they are, whether you're advanced like Microsoft or just beginning like Grammarly. We offer 30-minute free consultations to anybody who wants to talk to us about what their company is doing, and we'll give you advice on how to get started. And then for those of you who are interviewing, and I know Louisa is going to talk about the job market, asking about climate policy and job interviews is really important. When I was at PwC in diversity, our recruiters kept track of every question that students asked them in these interviews to highlight them to the rest of the organization in terms of what people cared about. And I would get these reports on like how many times diversity came up and when people asked about our policies and what was our position and what were we doing. So your voice in that area really, really matters more than maybe you think. This is my email. So just jennifer@climatevoice.org. I would love to be in touch. I'm going to stop sharing to turn it over to Louisa and then put this climate action guide in the chat. Would love you guys to check it out and download it. And then at the end, we can open it up for more questions. So thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I don't have anything quite as polished as Jennifer here, but I'm just going to give a quick little overview of who I am and why I'm excited to be here with you today. So I am a coach and a product and strategy leader who's worked across tech and mission-driven startups. And I help founders and execs lead better when their culture is fraying. But today I'm here with a different hat. My passion project, my love is climate, and I host a podcast called Any Job Can Be a Climate Job. And probably just like you, I asked, what can I do from where I sit? Here's a very embarrassing picture of me at the beach, but that's where I've kind of grew up always. Very, very cool kid, as you can tell. But really, it all comes back to my mom. She passed away a couple years ago, an incredible animal lover, ocean lover, planet lover, and she really instilled this sense of stewardship and responsibility for me. But like many people, I took a more traditional path. I went to school, I got into business, I got into tech, I started climbing the ladder, felt very successful, and I was doing all of these things. And it kind of hit me one day that like the climate crisis is getting worse and worse, and I'm kind of like off in this other area. And I realized that keeping it in the background wasn't good enough for me anymore. I considered pivoting my whole career into a climate job, but I also I had a tough time with that. And I started asking myself, what could it look like from where I already am? And how could I help other people do the same thing from where they are? So I launched this podcast. I talked to these people who were talking about really great things. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them here to be quick, but Lumi Gardner was my very first podcast, and she is the owner of Fuki Sushi. And talking to Lumi, I was so inspired. She shared all sorts of ideas about how she reuses table water and tea water from the table to water the gardens, how she's thought about all of the excess waste that gets done with like fryer oil boxes that are like plastic glued to cardboard and you can't recycle them, you can't reuse them. She negotiated reusable packaging with her fish supplier. She only uses sustainable fish, like just on and on and on. And it really inspired me to keep going with this and asking more about people in my network or people who I could learn from who are also taking great things across any sort of industry. And Charlie Sellers, I know Jennifer talked a lot about Microsoft here. He was at Gartner and at Microsoft, and he talked about how he used his voice and his position at Gartner to be able to change the conversation. So he was organizing the conference for Gartner IT customers, all these executives in a room, and he said, let's talk about your climate policies. And that wasn't on the original Gartner agenda. He just decided to do it and kind of said, does anybody have a problem with this? And the bosses were like, no, that sounds great. And so that started instilling in all of these other organizations this conversation like, oh, my competitors are talking about climate. I need to talk about climate. How do we bring that back? So talking about systemic change, like Gardner or like Jennifer was saying, you have this influence. And I think a lot of people don't recognize just how much influence they have at work beyond their job scope. So I just really encourage you guys to think about it because there's so much that we can do there. Gabe Dover is the founder of Moon 5, but has a really fun story about how he was working at a company that serves ads on the internet. So like every time you load a web page, I think it's like 25 ads are kind of loading in the background and like it's a real-time algorithm to see like who are you, what what do I know about you, and who's going to bid the most to put this banner in front of you? And all of that has a lot of compute power. And he started digging into that and saying, like, wait, what's going on here? Like, do we really need it to be that fast? Are there other things we can do? They ended up launching a new product line that was like brings down that compute power, saves a lot of carbon, and was a differentiator for the company. Again, just because he started asking questions. And then I also wanted to highlight this one, which is the latest episode. Catherine, I think, is on the call right now because I saw you join. Hi. This is with the flip of a switch, and this was the Public Health Institute of Western Massachusetts was actually working on a clean energy bill and getting the public to build awareness and then ultimately sign off and sign up for this. And they partnered with Catherine and her animation studio to bring a really complicated kind of climate initiative into simple terms that resonated with the public and with the officials, the policymakers, and they were able to pass this, and it opted in everybody into clean energy from the get go, which is really, really great in a place that is the #1 asthma capital of the world. So just some creative ideas to think about. But every story is different, and the through line was kind of the same. People didn't wait for permission. They looked at where they were already sitting, where they had the connections, where they had the conversations, and they started asking, what could I shift? And so for me, um, when we talk about climate action, it's easy to picture like quitting your job and like going to working with a direct air capture startup, which sounds super fun and cool. But I really do believe that the most leverage in this transition is actually inside the economy we already have. And I'm so happy that you all showed up here because it really does, like, any individual person can make a difference and create a ripple in time, or a ripple effect. And yeah, so if you're wondering, what you can do, I'm happy to chat. Feel free to reach out to me here. My email's there or on LinkedIn. And all of you probably have amazing stories that would be great to feature on the podcast. And I'd love to do that because I really do feel like we need to democratize and share this information as broadly as possible. There's no reason to keep it a secret. And what works, what doesn't work. Try to see what we can do because everybody needs to be participating. And that's all I got.
Thanks so much, Louisa. Really appreciate it. Thanks to you both for sharing. And now I thought we could open up the floor. So I see a few of our volunteers here. Hey, Trin, how is your connection? Are you able to share with us your project at the moment? Maybe not. We'll come back. I know, Chris, you had also expressed interest in sharing. If you're free to unmute.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Chris. And first of all, I wanted to thank our speakers today, Jennifer and Louisa. Very inspiring presentations. Thank you so much. So, for those who don't know, I work at a small nonprofit in the development team, and it's a nonprofit nursing homes for elderly poor, and something that I was able to accomplish recently was so we receive a lot of donations, and for the most part they're useful, but then some are kind of like we can't really use because the elderly can't really eat them or use them or whatever for whatever reason. And before I started my sustainability initiative at this home, they would just get thrown away. And so I was able to do some research and find other organizations that were able to pick up what we are not able to use. And so they were able to actually use them. I think that was a really big win for us because it was a lot of items and it would have been really bad to just throw them away. And so my next project would be educating the elderly, the residents of the home, and also the other people that are working in the offices about recycling because the recycling is not really it's not that good at this home specifically. So I will be starting with that and just creating or providing each office with like a box to put their papers in, if like a one-sided printer papers that are not going to be used again. So then we can recycle them properly, because usually they just put it in the same trash bin as everything else and it just gets thrown out. So, so that is my next project. But yes, thank you for allowing me to share.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Can I say something? All right. Good
Yes, Anne,
evening.
please go ahead.
Okay. Hi. Okay. So, I've been on and off on this platform because I don't understand the working. So, but let me first introduce myself. Hi, my name is Anne. Um, and Famuyiwa. I'm a Nigerian. So when I saw this, I'm an avid reader, so I was looking to join the group. And so let me tell you what I intend to do. I think you're talking about your initiatives. So there's something I'm currently implementing. I live in the Niger Delta in Nigeria. And so I found a couple of schools. Currently, I have 16 schools on my list. I founded something called the Read Circle. And basically, what the Read Circle is about take them to under-resourced, underprivileged areas, because we found out that at the end of every school year, now the way it works around here is that my kids are in a private school, so we take the books home, and then they don't let you, because of planned obsolescence, they don't let us use it for the next child. So we have a lot of parents have a lot of books stacked up, and sometimes we end up burning. So I started a drive to collect books. That's textbooks, not notebooks. I started a drive to collect textbooks where I took them to two schools earlier in the year, and then these under-resourced schools, less privileged children, are using those textbooks because, of course, the knowledge is valuable, and so they're using it to learn. And so this year, my target is to get 50,000 books. I'm currently in talks with like maybe 10, 20 schools and a couple of my friends and my church members and all that. And so our plan is, okay, let's get these books to them. So that is my initiative, hoping to give that's upcycling, circular economy, so that those books that would ideally be thrown out or burned are reused in rural settings. So that's basically what I'm working on. And then again, I also found out that a lot of places that is in those underserved communities have a problem with wash. And so we're working. I've gone to the university here, I've spoken to them. So want to develop a curriculum on wash, and hopefully we integrate it into the school system, because yes, as I said earlier, I'm from River State, and basically, almost every community has water in those communities. Well, most of our communities are islands, that's in the village, in the rural settlements. Yeah, I can say that. And so you can imagine where children go and defecate in water. So that is my own initiative. I don't know if this cuts it, but that's basically.
Anne, thank you so much for sharing. That's really, you've got a lot of incredible initiatives going on. And so I'll ask this question to you that Varvara was kind enough to ask Chris in the chat. Do you have at this moment any kind of questions or particular challenges that you might like some guidance on from our colleagues who are here today and from our experts who are here as well?
Okay. So for me, like I said earlier, I am an avid reader. So what I did was I'm just venturing into climate change, and so any articles that would come my way, that because so basically what I'm going to do is, since the university is not yet ready to work with me, like it takes time to develop the curriculum. Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to do is first do the climate change clubs in those 20 schools. And so we're going to implement it in the new school year. That is the 2025-2026 school year. Because my hope as yeah, so any ideas, any readings, any I'm open to everything, any ideas, any readings that can help me get the kids to participate and then learn about climate change. So I'm taking this leaf from my childhood, because when we're much younger in school, we used to do something called moral instruction. And that basically taught us how to interface with other people. Although now the value systems have eroded, but basically then back then in primary school, they'll say, okay, when you see an elder person on the bus, stand up, offer your seats, greet, and all that. So, as Africans, we usually have like, would you say maybe
Well, it looks like you're muted, Anne.
Yeah, can I speak?
okay?
Yes, of course.
Can I go on?
Hi, did you hear me?
Well,
Okay,
Okay.
good.
and you're breaking up a tiny bit. Onya, why don't you go ahead and then Anne will come back to you.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, my name is Julius Onia. I'm also from Nigeria.
Welcome.
And it's good to be here. Yeah, I would like to share two of my projects I've been doing. I'm a teacher, I'm a farmer, I'm also a climate action activist. So I want to integrate what I've been doing in the education aspect as a climate action activist. And here in Nigeria, it's easier to understand multiplication tables, state and capital, because most of these are written at the back of the books children use every day. So our own idea now is I want to replace those climate and those times table, state and capital written at the back of book with climate actions. Climate action that has to do with how do you protect your planet? What are the basic things you can do on your own? And I'm sure if you catch them young from school, it's easier to replicate it at home. Like imagine you are going a short distance and your parents want to drive. So you can just tell them, no, let's trek, it's not far. This is the impact of this. So having all this information, so what we're doing is to have thousands of exercise books, though it's more of, it depends on uh, our partners that we can get. But if it's something we have to fund on our own, we're going to attach a little price to it. So the aim is just let this information be close to them, let them get used to it. And here in Nigeria, I must tell you, 80% of our revenue come from oil. So taking out fossil fuel is out of it. We need to adapt to it. So we will be talking about adaptations. What are the things on our own as individual? What can we do to adapt to this? And the best way to carry this out is through the children in the school. Then the second project, the second project is we are in summer break. Children will be going back to school. And last year, I met so many children who could not go back to school because they said the parent cannot afford to do this and that. So we want to come up with a project which we call Back to School. So while the parents are busy trying to get the school fees, we can just get a school bag, the books, the shoes, the socks, at least finding a way to subsidize or to support the parent so that it can be easy. Because in a new sections in every school, you need to buy a new uniform, you need to buy a new books, you need to pay a new fees for in the new sections. And this is uh, like a burden to most parents. So okay, if you can go and do, and again, governments actually are doing their own to subsidize the school fees, but there are still a lot that stopped children for resuming to school. So because I know I've met 3, 4, 5, everything. So we're looking into these two projects. Yeah, the first one, like I say, is more climate actions using exercise books, what students easily use to pass the message, and secondly, to support many children back to school. Thank you.
Julius, thank you so much. Do you have any questions for the group or for our expats or for our experts? Sorry, thank you again for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, my question is, though I've, like I said, partnerships and yeah, has been a major challenge, and I've tried using uh, a different platform for support, which is not which like GoFundMe. I've used it last 2 years, and also have Giving.com for them to support. But it seems uh, the result was not coming out. So I just want to ask, how can we strategize in getting partners to do this? Like one of the things I told my partners on that, yes, these books, if we have support, we'll write it boldly. The partners, this is it, and a lot. So how do we convince people to join us in carrying out this uh, project? So what is the easy way to get this partner who want to work follow us to do this? Thank you.
Thank you, Julius. It sounds like Chris kind of had a similar question that she shared in the chat. So she was looking for some initiatives or companies that would donate recycle bins to nonprofits. So a similar question in that, how do you get more engagement from other groups to support these projects that you're working on? Jennifer, Luisa, I don't know if you have any thoughts on good ways to kind of develop these partnerships that you would like to share.
Hi, 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 hi. Network messed up. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Anne.
Okay,
We can.
sorry. Can you hear me? Let me chip in my question before you. Okay, so hi. Okay, so basically, I'm not asking for finance. I'm just asking for links. I'm just asking for books. That's basically what I'm asking for. I'm asking for links so that I can develop the ideas for the climate change club and the wash club so that it makes it very interesting for the children while I go ahead to partner with the Ministry of Education and the university to basically the university first. There's a department of wash. Wash will be water and sanitation and hygiene. I'll partner with them I'm already in talks with them. So basically, since I'm an avid reader and I hold a PhD in office and information management, so basically any links, anything, any ideas would be welcome. Thank you very much. That's mine.
Thank you, Anne.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for sharing your projects and your progress. It's really commendable that you're driving at this, you're continuing to work at it, and you're coming to this forum to ask for support and help. I think some of the questions you're asking might be great for the Slack channel to get like a broader view. But in my career and what I've seen, getting really clear on your mission and what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it, and then finding organizations that have aligned missions has been really successful in what I've seen. And I also, I love the example that you're sharing about the upcycling of the books, the textbooks. And it sounds like, Julius, you might have an opportunity to do a similar thing. If parents are constantly trying to buy new books and buy new uniforms over and over the school year, perhaps there's an opportunity to pass those down to the upcoming grades.
Yeah, and I would just echo, I think you guys sound very connected, actually, in terms of the university and the resources and where you need to be. Climate Voice is a small and scrappy team. So unfortunately, we're really US based at the moment in terms of our team members. And we have lots of volunteers, but we haven't really expanded globally. So I don't have the same level of international contacts, but very inspired by all these projects.
Thanks to you both. Would anyone else care to share what they've been working on in the last several weeks of our program? Any particular questions or challenges? Take advantage of our experts who are here with us on this call.
Hi everyone. So I
Hey,
promised to
Trin.
share. So I hope the reception. Hi. I hope the reception is fine. I'm sorry, it's like 11 in the evening over here, so we are in the car. But just let me know if you cannot hear okay, and I just stop. But one project I'm really like happy about. So I work in a big corporation. I'm based in Estonia, but the corporation is global. So I'm more, the project is now oriented to Europe, but anyway, I think you can run similar things everywhere. So what I am doing is I'm like in our part of the corporation, we have 200 associates from 6 countries, and our company has clear goals, carbon reduction goals. So we want to become net zero by 2050, and there are a lot of initiatives going on. So for sure, there's a lot more we could be doing, but we are kind of already doing stuff, and we have a sustainability team, a CSO, and so on. We just came out the sustainability report, and so on. But on local level, where I work, so you don't see that too much. Still, the main message you hear on every meeting is that we need to grow. We are applauded when we grow, and so on. So it's really, I guess it's how a regular corporation works. And what I was thinking, or what I'm trying to do, is really to make every associate or every employee think how they can, in their everyday work more sustainably. So kind of even to create ways of working in local level, not only that the global sustainability team is doing stuff, but so really every one of us working there knows how to work more sustainably. So I have created a challenge among our 200 associates. They need to take an e-learning on sustainability, which our company has developed. But as a prize of the challenge, which I'm quite excited about, I have got allowance to use my own budget. So I'm in internal comms, nothing to do with sustainability, but to run a workshop among the winners of this challenge. So it's going to be 40 employees plus their managers, and this workshop is going to be held by Drew Wilkinson. So he's going to develop a workshop for us called Sustainability is Part of Everyone's Job. And for this workshop, he will work with those people who have won the workshop and kind of try to do a bit of pre-work. And then during the workshops, he will really work with them to figure out ways how they can work more sustainably in their roles. So it's just started, we just started the challenge. So the workshop will happen at the end of the year. My big hope is that it will be successful, in a sense that these people who pass it will really start working in different ways and also talking about it. And if it's a success, then hopefully we'll get more budget to run more workshops like this. So in the end, everybody in the company knows how they can make their job a climate job, not just relying on the big corporate goals. So that's the project. I hope it will be a success, but I don't know. We are just starting, and I'm even struggling to engage people to take the e-learning because it's summer, and of course everyone is on holidays. So I'm working hard at engaging people, motivating people to do the e-learning, and then we'll follow up with the workshop. And I guess I would have more to tell you next year or in a few months. And I don't really know if I want, like, if there's any support with this, if you have any ideas how to make it, where to focus on with these workshops, but I think Drew will come with a lot of ideas of his own. So any ideas or support are always welcome, but I don't think I have a very concrete question about it.
Well, congratulations. That sounds awesome. And congratulations for getting budget for it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of my own. I got approval to use it for this course because I guess what makes it easier is that sustainability is part of our OGSM. So it is part of the big goals, and the company is doing stuff for it. So I could just kind of convince my own manager that let's use a bit of the local budget to fill our OGSM goals. So in a corporation, I guess you just have to use the right terminology, the right words, living our purpose and so on, fulfilling the OGSM, and then at least I managed to get some budget for it.
And we've worked quite a bit with Drew Wilkinson, and he's featured in the Climate Action Toolkit that I mentioned, our guide. We also did a webinar about Green Team success stories. If you want to look on our YouTube channel, that Drew was featured in, he and I co-facilitated it with 5 other employees at companies driving climate action. So I think you're in very good hands.
Yeah, I watched the webinar, so yeah, I really liked it.
Good.
And that's kind of another thing, another topic I could talk about, but I don't want to take like more of your time. So the Global Green Team is another thing that Drew kind of has inspired me and a team of us who are trying to push this at our corporation as well. But this is kind of more vague at the moment. So the other project is something more concrete to share.
Super. Thanks a lot, Katrina.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, just one quick thing. I think William had a hand up that I missed earlier. William, did you have a question or a comment?
I'd like to, can you hear me or?
Yep.
Okay. My focus is working on climate change deniers. I'm a former employee and attorney actually with a company that was absorbed by Chevron. So I'm a Chevron retiree. I make presentations to retirees. Of course, there are many deniers among the presentation, and it's not easy. However, I do believe that deniers are not stupid. They look at facts differently, but they are not immovable, and they are not absolutely locked into their position. In fact, Chevron is working on research to collect carbon dioxide directly from power plants. They have processes to minimize leakage from their natural gas lines. So they're not all objective opponents. They're not all crazy. However, trying to complete or trying to convince a denier is not easy. And in fact, people that I've contacted think I'm wasting my time. I disagree. I've prepared a draft 60-second message, a public relations message on this subject. And my plan is to put it on Fox TV in the US in a small station that I might be able to afford as a test to see whether it's effective or not. And I'm looking for support in that area from anyone who doesn't think that I'm crazy.
You're fighting the good fight.
Yeah. Yeah, you really are, William, fighting the good fight. Thank you for doing what you do. And I've also found similar, I've talked to a few people who have worked in oil and gas, and I think we need more people speaking up in those companies because a lot of them are, they see the problems, but also we can't just cut off oil and gas tomorrow. Like we need to transition, and if we can have more people inside making a shift, that's really powerful. And I also love that you're going after climate deniers. I mean, that shift and that ripple starts at all stages. It's like a spectrum of your climate involvement. So we need everybody at every stage. I'd love to support in any way possible.
All right, Amir had a hand up, and Vavar, I know you're probably eager to share some important information with us before we close.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you all for all the activism. We definitely need everyone on board. Second, existing huge businesses are the one most important layer angle at the overall situation, whatever. So the movement that says, oh, let's have green teams within or action teams within these companies is like super, super important. And I've been following Drew Wilkinson's and his work, and I really appreciate that. Then my organization is actually trying to go to the maximum value. It's called value economy. We're aiming to maximum value. And that is an iteration because the first intuition was, hey, let's fix climate when I just started in that direction. The second was the same, just with sustainability. And the third was what it is now, which is, hey, the whole economy has to change, and let's see how. And then definitely businesses are huge. Climate deniers, amazing work. Thank you. The original two presentations you had, I missed it and I really apologize. I joined late. If we can get links, that would be amazing. I did want to mention, because recycling and let's improve the recycling type thing came up. It's a huge, huge topic. I think half of the activists on the planet that really want to do really well on sustainability and climate would push either for that, like all sort of sorting between the existing bins, or to move us away from the single-use plastic, which is probably the single worst thing that we have. And then, but they focus so much on plastic that they end up moving to another single use, which is single use compostable, whatever. It keeps, and they do manage to help us avoid a huge problem. We totally agree with that. Problem is that they make a huge process change, which is not trivial ever, even if their process change is smaller than the one we want to do. And the one we really want to do is want to get rid of the throwaway or ever extract, and I moved from one material to another, because the biggest problem is the ever extracting thingy. So we need a bigger change than the change from single-use plastic to single-use compostable, whatever. It's harder to do. It will cost us 3 times, 4 times, whatever. The benefit will be 100 times, 200 times, 500 times. We have to actually understand that and move as much as we can, as fast as we can, to of our efforts and our amazing passion to, let's improve. And then we end up having millions of motivated people helping little kids sort the existing 3 bins a little better. That's not going to help at all, basically. And it's a shame, because we're wasting our effort and resources, and we don't have too many shots at goal. So we want the highest efficiency, the sooner we can, the fastest we can. And that's exactly what my organization is all about. Jumped and also already got both volunteering and have a role on specifically on reuse organizations. Started before my effort came up. And they've been doing an amazing job, and I'm fully supporting it at the highest efficiency possible already. So whether that's for a workplace green team or for any effort in sustainability, the principle is the same. So thank you.
Thanks,
I
Amir.
got the links to connect to me, by the way, on the chat.
Varvara, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody, for being here, for continuing to show up week after week. We've been together with some of you since mid-May, and it's now mid-July. And as Jennifer had shared earlier, the climate and the landscape of policy is only heating up, and it means that we need to stay connected, we need to stay supportive to each other, and we need to continue building up our resource base and our courage. And I dropped a couple of links in the chat here. Please fill out our eval survey. It will take only 1 minute, but it will help us improve our programs at Work and Climate. We're mostly volunteer run, and our experts are volunteering their valuable time to be here with you and to spread the wisdom and to learn from you in return. And we can't wait to see everyone in 2 weeks' time at our closing celebration for our Workplace Climate Action Peer Network program, where we will see what we've achieved together, what were the roadblocks, and what are we looking forward in the next few months in our personal and professional climate journeys. Yeah, I was just hoping to see everybody come off mute and to celebrate us all spending this 1 hour together in power and in solidarity for climate action. Can I see some folks off mute? Woo!
Thank you.
Woo-hoo. Thanks, Louisa. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everyone, for coming and for sharing.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'll hang out if anyone has questions. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Thanks so much for the invitation, Alexis and Varvara. It was a pleasure.